Well, quickly, Jen, I do want to say, because this does need some explanation. I understand the MVP is going to be a quarterback because it's become a quarterback-only award. However, I hate when the media acts like that's a fait accompli, like senators complaining about the filibuster. Do something about it. If you really don't like it, guys, you vote on this thing. If you don't like that it's only quarterbacks, vote for a non-quarterback. So we will tilt towards quarterbacks because of the value in the MVP part of it. But this is not only quarterback. So coming in at number 5 is that quarterback, Tom Brady. Why is Tom Brady number 5? Well, the case for Brady being MVP is he has the most yards and the most touchdowns. That's the entirety of the case. Brady's team has struggled the last half of the season, 3-4 after the outstanding start, 4-3 after the outstanding start. Brady in his biggest games of the year, the Rams, the Patriots, and the Saints, has been at his worst, and this most recent game was the worst game any MVP candidate has had all season by a mile. Not only losing a game to the Saints, but getting shut out, and when you only needed one drive for the first 50 minutes and you'd have the lead, not being able to produce it, that knocks you down quite a bit. But he leads in yards and touchdowns, so he's still in the top 5. Number 4, Jonathan Taylor. Oh my goodness, Jonathan Taylor. If we could erase the first 3 games of the year, the Colts maybe would be the Super Bowl favorites, and Jonathan Taylor may be the MVP favorite. Jonathan Taylor, first 3 games of the year, was averaging 55 yards per game, and the Colts were 0-3. Since then, they're 8-3. He has over 1,300 yards rushing, over 1,600 yards from scrimmage, and 19 touchdowns. How's this for a stat? Colts, when he has less than 100 yards, 0-6. When he has more than 100 yards, 8-0. If there is value for a running back, Jonathan Taylor is producing it on a level of Derrick Henry last year. Henry, of course, though, didn't win the MVP either. Number 3, surging late like a great horse down the back stretch of the Kentucky Derby, Patrick Mahomes. All right, so we already know 3-4 to 10-4, the number 1 seed currently in the AFC. His best 2 games of the year have come in the last 2 games, most notably on national television with the division on the line. Also, it is worth noting, as a little addition to his MVP, case, the first 6 weeks of the year, when the Chiefs were 3-3, they had a historically bad defense. The only reason they weren't 1-5 or 0-6 was the work of that man right there. His stats, while not up to his career standard, still top 5 in touchdowns, top 5 in yards, and the best team in the AFC. He's at number 3. Number 2, the other side of the football, TJ Watt. Leads the NFL in sacks, leads the NFL in forced fumbles, leads the NFL in fumble recoveries, second in the NFL in tackles for a loss. The Steelers are 7-4-1 when he plays. And of their 7 wins this year, 6 of them are directly attributed to him. You can make a strong argument. Without TJ Watt, the Steelers would have 1 win this year. If he has a monster game this weekend as a 10-point underdog against Mahomes and the Chiefs, and the Steelers win, he's going to have a legitimate case to overtake the man who right now is number 1, and he's number 1 with a bullet, Aaron Rodgers. 30 touchdowns, 4 picks, but better than that, because he was 0 touchdowns, 2 picks in week 1. Since then, he's 30 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. They have lost 1 game he has played since then. And in that game, he had a 140 passer rating and 4 touchdowns against the Vikings. Also, you saw his value in the game he missed. The offense couldn't get going. Now, the offense was playing a great defense, but still couldn't get going at all. And so Rodgers, team's the 1 seed. They're red hot at post week 1, essentially. He should be the MVP as of now. Broussard, there is the MVP top 5. I don't know what one could argue with, but go ahead.
Oh, I'm gonna give you some things to argue about. All right, first let me give you props. TJ Watt is having a tremendous year. And you know this, Nick, only 2 defensive players have ever won the MVP award, and nobody's done it since Lawrence Taylor in 1986. Here's the thing working against Watt. We know it's going to be a quarterback anyway, but they're 7-6-1, and you 7-4-1 with him, but still. When Lawrence Taylor won it, the Giants were 14-2. And when Alan Page won it before him for Minnesota in 1971, they were 11-3. So you've got your team has to have this incredible season as well for a defender. I actually think, Nick, the NFL should consider creating some type of, maybe like a Cy Young award for the quarterback. And then we have an MVP for any player. But there's like the Cy Young, the Peyton Manning award, whatever you want to call it.
I agree 100%.
But now, all right, let me get to this. I don't even know what to call this thing. The Tom Brady, was this to spite me? Because I picked, you're jealous. Oh, Broussard's going to be right on Brady, the preseason MVP. He picked the Chiefs with me. He's going to be right on the Super Bowl pick. He's a basketball guy. We can't have that. Is that what this is about? Because I can live with Rodgers at number one because it's close. All right. Okay. But how in the world do you have Patrick Mahomes ahead of Tom Brady? There is no argument in existence, Nick, for Patrick Mahomes to be ahead of Tom Brady. Right now, the last week. That's it. Right now, because look at these stats. Tom Brady has him beat in everything. Completion percentage, passer yards, number one in the league. Touchdowns, number one in the league. And Mahomes has more interceptions. Passer rating better. The old man's even run for as many TDs as Mahomes. And fumbles, Mahomes has twice as many. Nick, I mean, this is comical. And I like Mahomes. But there's no way he can be ahead of Tom Brady. And here's the other thing. In addition to the stats, Brady has the narrative. Brady's narrative, 44 years old, defying father time, leading the league in several categories, coming off a Super Bowl victory. That's his narrative. What's Mahomes' narrative? Worst season of his professional career since he's been a starter. The league kind of figured him out. Not as dynamic as he used to be. Like, what's the narrative?
Do you do you agree with any of those narratives?
They're both 10
or
and
you
4.
just
They're both 10 and 4.
Yeah, but okay, that's fine. But one's the one seed, and the other is right now 6% chance to get the 1 seed.
Tougher conference.
And the narrative again, we are not going to pretend. There are a couple things that we can't pretend. One is we can't pretend that when it comes to postseason awards, that the final 4 or 5 games of the year are weighed as the same as the first 4 or 5 or the middle 4 or 5. We know they have increased importance. And we know that Brady is coming off his single worst performance of the season. Shutout for the first time in 15 years. That's another, by the way, stat. I'm surprised you didn't include it. It's another stat Brady has on Mahomes. Career times being shut out. Well, Mahomes never, ever in his entire football life, dating back to junior high school, Brady, meanwhile, has been shut out once in the last 72 hours. So that seems noteworthy. But the other thing is, how well are you playing at the end? Yes, Brady has the numbers edge. Will he finish the year with the numbers edge? Maybe. He'll probably beat him in yards. Will he beat him in touchdowns? We'll see. But MVP awards have not purely been about the numbers. If they were, Wilt would have more MVPs than Russell, but Russell has more than Wilt. If it was just about the numbers, then we would see very different stories being told. Numbers are part of it. But again, Brady's entire case is the stats. How well they're playing right now. They're the 3 seed right now. And good for them. They're the same right now. The same seed as the Titans. Very different schedules, though. And as far as the numbers, what does help Brady is the 9 touchdowns he threw against the Falcons. That does, 9 touchdowns and nearly 800 yards against the Falcons. I'm happy for Brady in that regard. But we wouldn't dare discount those good performances like we do Mahomes against the Raiders. We would never do that. But again, I think right now Mahomes has surged ahead of Brady, but I think they're both wilds far and away behind Rodgers. I think Rodgers is clearly right now ahead of both of them.
Okay. Here's the thing. And I know this is a regular season award, but Brady is number one over Mahomes for the other reason, because they played head-to-head, and Tom Brady mollywopped, as you like to say, Patrick Mahomes. So for the record, and I know that it's not supposed to count. It is. It's not a part of it like how if you're on like a jury and the prosecutor's like, is it true that you sleep with a skeleton? And the guy's like, what? And like, disregard. You will be disregard. Do not believe that he sleeps with a skeleton. The jury's like, I know we're supposed to disregard that, but do you think he like sleeps with a skeleton? Doesn't matter. Even though you're not supposed to think about it, it is still in the overall narrative. So that being said, Tom Brady's number one. I think Mahomes is last place if we're lucky. I will move up Jonathan Taylor because I think Jonathan Taylor is certainly having a better year than Patrick Mahomes for the following reason. One is consistent production, and you mentioned a little bit of it. Jonathan Taylor has scored a touchdown in every game dating back to September 26. So think about September 26th. That's when you're like, what do you need for your school supplies? Another thing of crayons? That's the last time Jonathan Taylor did not score a touchdown. Number two, he's done them in big ways. The wow factor. And everybody saw it Saturday against the Patriots. Is this going to be close? Nope, not anymore. Game over, Jonathan Taylor. This was actually a knock on him coming out of Wisconsin. That's why he fell to the second round. The draft experts like, I don't know. He set a bunch of records in college, but is he even fast? Yes, he's very fast. He has 3 of the top 5 fastest speeds in the league. So I think a wow factor plays into a little bit of that narrative. And finally, number 3, historical precedent. We're going to have to shout out the NFL Network Fox broadcast for this graphic that Dusty said, hey, why don't we use this graphic? Our great teammates over at Fox Broadcast. When we look at, and I know it's difficult that it became a quarterback award, but it wasn't always that way. He is almost outpacing through the first 14 games all of those MVPs, whether it's, Barry Sanders, we have Danian on there, we have Marshall Faulk on there. So I think that the historical precedence, the wow factor, and just the consistency of Jonathan Taylor moves him above Mahomes. I would put him top 3 in the MVP race.
All right, so here's the problem. Just a couple problems, and I'm not here to attack Jonathan Taylor, but Wilds made a very interesting point when talking about Jonathan Taylor winning MVP. He said, think back to what you were doing September 26th, how long ago that feels. So think back to what you were doing February 7th. Does that feel like 30 years ago? Because that was when the Super Bowl between the Bucs and Chiefs were played. Yet somehow that's supposed to factor in here. And again, if we're factoring in last year, Jonathan Taylor, really embarrassing playoff performance last year. Yikes. They lost to the Bills. Who loses to the Bills in the play? No. Sorry. Listen, we're being fair here. We're just being fair. I just think Josh Allen should maybe be ahead of Jonathan Taylor because of that playoff game. I just think it's something that needs to be discussed. If we're talking about last year's results, Your Honor, as I oddly talk about a skeleton in a bed, maybe that would have been better post-show to work out your issues with, my friend, but that's neither here nor there. On Jonathan Taylor, here's what I actually think does work against him, my friend. An honest question. Do you think Jonathan Taylor this year has been better or more dominant, if we're going to talk about previous seasons, than Derrick Henry last year? Because I think that's hard to convince people, and Derrick Henry didn't get a vote. And his team, same division, they won the division. Don't you think that hurts him, Wilds?
No, I think that's very fair, but I almost feel that works in his advantage.
That's true.
That it's almost like, it's like a makeup call, because the narrative that a running back can never win MVP. Yeah, I feel like the tide is starting to shift. It's almost like the anti-narrative is becoming the narrative now. So I actually think that works in his favor, Broussard.
Yeah, I don't. Henry had the 5th highest amount of yards ever as a running back, over 2,000 yards, and like Nick said, didn't get a vote. He averaged 125 yards a game, and Jonathan Taylor's averaging 108. And again, Taylor's been fantastic. I just don't see them breaking the trend of quarterbacks winning this award for a guy averaging just 108 yards a game. But great year by him, for sure.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from First Things First, or go watch a few segments from our other shows on FS1.